Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say again, thank you very much for being so responsive to us, for holding this hearing when we sent you a letter to ask you to do it. And thank you for being so generous about time.
Responsive to the American people.
I hope so, too.
Not just to you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your holding this hearing.
Yeah.
Mr. Strumpf, as you know, some of my colleagues and I sent you a letter last week about the board's plans to claw back compensation from senior executives who were responsible for overseeing this scam. Wells Fargo provided us with a response yesterday. I noticed that although we sent the letter to you, that the response actually came from somebody else in the company, which I guess is another example of holding yourself accountable. I want to focus now on the mysterious circumstances surrounding Carrie Tolsted's retirement in July. As you know, Ms. Tolsted ran the community banking division, the division where this scam occurred, for the entire time that the scam took place. She was in charge of all of the 5,300 employees who were fired, and she oversaw the creation of 2 million fake accounts. Now, in July of this year, just 2 months before the settlement was announced, and before those facts became public, Ms. Tolsted retired at age 56. You indicated in the letter, responding to our letter, that she walks away with over $90 million in stock options, and awards. Fortune magazine says it's actually about $125 million. But, and here's the key part, according to Fortune, if Ms. Tolsted had been fired instead of retiring, she would have had to forfeit as much as $45 million of that award. Mr. Stumpf, the response to our letter confirms that you knew of this scandal before Ms. Tolsted retired. It said, and this is from your letter, quote, senior management and the board were aware of the pending litigation, investigation, and discussions with our regulators relating to sales practices when Ms. Tolsted indicated her decision to retire. Is that accurate, Mr. Stumpf, what this letter says? Were you personally aware of the massive problem that occurred under Ms. Tolsted's watch in July when she announced her retirement?
I was aware of that. We were involved in discussions with the city attorney, the OCC, and the CFPB, yes.
So you had some indication there was a massive problem.
We had some indication that we had 1% of our people who were doing the wrong thing.
Also known as a massive problem.
Well,
if you knew this, did you consider firing Ms. Tolsted before she retired?
Well, at the time, she was reporting to our president and chief operating officer.
It's a simple question. No, you knew there was a problem. Did you consider firing her?
No, because of her full...
Seriously? You found out that one of your divisions had created 2 million fake accounts, had fired thousands of employees for improper behavior, and had cheated thousands of your own customers, and you didn't even once consider firing her ahead of her retirement?
Well, in fact, when I look at her full body of work, and I look at the customer loyalty improvement and the customer service improvement.
Are you sure that those were not fake?
All the work that was done, she chose to retire. And I'd also like to make one other comment, because you made the...
So you, no, I'm just on this. You never considered firing her. So now Ms. Tolsted has apparently retired, but is also staying with the firm through the end of the year. And in the response to our letter, you state, or the person writing it states, quote, Ms. Tolsted is eligible to be considered for a 2016 annual incentive award. An incentive award for doing a great job in 2016? Mr. Stumpf, that is unbelievable. You are the chairman of the board and the CEO. In those roles, do you think it would be appropriate for Ms. Tolsted to get another bonus on top of the millions that she has already gotten as a reward for her role in this massive scam?
The board will consider that. I don't want to prejudice the board, but I also want to make one comment.
I don't understand that answer. You know, you and your board have already made changes. You've made changes to the compensation scheme for thousands of employees. You've sat here today and talked about that. You've removed sales quotas, I think you told us. You've reformed incentives. Why can that be done quick as a wink across the entire bank? But a question about cutting compensation for a highly placed executive who oversaw a massive fraud takes long deliberation? Why is that?
Because there's a board governance process, and we want that to work properly. And whether Carrie was retired or she was fired, there'd be no difference with respect to how the board can deal with that.
I'm sorry, if she was fired, it is my understanding she would not be entitled to large parts of her compensation. It's not just a clawback issue. We're talking about she doesn't get them to begin with if she gets fired, but you let her walk out of the door with a retirement. I don't quite understand. How do you explain this to your own shareholders?
There is a process that the board goes through, and they will do that. They've already met, and we won't give that.
I don't understand. You keep saying there's, the board, as if these are strangers that you met in a dark alley. Under the bylaws of Wells Fargo, and I'm quoting here, the chairman shall preside at all meetings of the board.
And
you were able to make changes. Why can you not make a change here?
I'm not on the Human Resources Committee of the board. They have their own governance and structure. We want that to proceed in the process in which we have.
All right. So we'll do this your way. Our letter asked a number of questions about clawbacks of Ms. Tolsted's and other executives' pay, including yours. Wells Fargo's answer to our letter was just basically you punted, that the decision would be up to the board, the same punt you've given here. So you're the chairman of the board. Let me ask it this way. Will you personally support clawing back all or part of Ms. Tolsted's pay?
I'm not going to, in any way, try to influence or prejudice the board as they do their deliberation.
So you have absolutely no opinion on this?
I'm not going to opine on that.
You're not going to opine on it. You're going to say, get out there, defraud, cheat, lie, steal, and I have nothing to say about whether or not you ought to still be getting your bonus.
I've never said, and we'd never say as our company, go out there and do any of those things. We try to do the right thing
But you
every
say
day.
if you do them, you can count on Chairman Stumpf not to stand up and say you shouldn't get your incentive bonus.
The board has a process, and they will
I
do
think
it.
you started this whole thing by saying, don't tell me what you say, tell me what your actions are.
Am I-
And your actions are, people do this, and you're not going to take a single step to shut it down. So I guess I can ask this question again. Will you personally support clawing back any or all of the pay for the person in charge of compliance, someone we haven't talked about much today, the person who is supposed to be responsible to make sure that the bank is following the law? Will you have any recommendation about that person?
I'm going to have the board do their process.
You are going to have no recommendation at all, ever, at any point in this process?
Whatever the board accepts, and whatever they do, I will accept and I will support.
You are not passive here. If you have nothing to do, then what are you doing serving as chairman of the board? If you have no opinions on the most massive fraud that has hit this bank since the beginning of time, how can it be that you actually get to continue to collect a paycheck for being chairman of the board?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the fact this is a massive fraud. But secondly, the board will do their work, and I'm not going to prejudice their work. And I'll accept whatever they come up with, and I will be supportive.
You know, you accepted all along as this fraud built up, this massive fraud, you accepted all of the performance bonuses based on the cross-selling that is at the heart of this. You watched your own stock go up by more than $200 million based in part on exactly this massive fraud. You got out and you pumped it to Wall Street, and you said to Wall Street, hey, we are doing such a great job cross-selling here at Wells Fargo. You should tell everybody to buy our stock. And now you turn around and say, I shall remain passive and simply accept what Wells Fargo wants to do. You know, in 2008, Wall Street promised change, but it looks like it is business as usual. A giant bank cheats the little guys, and the executives line their own pockets. Mr. Stumpf, you make it clear that Wall Street won't change until we make it change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stump,